Have you guys ever said something funny and had someone say to you, "You crack me up," and you're wondering what they mean by that? Well, that's using figurative language. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. Figurative versus literal. Figurative means they're using an expression, and literal means they're saying exactly what they mean. So in that instance, if somebody said, "You crack me up," that's figurative. If they said, "I think you're funny," then that would be literal. So today we're specifically talking about idioms. All right, what are people saying at Maple Mountain High? Sometimes our teachers and our students and friends say things that we don't understand, certain expressions. So today we want to go over some of those and encourage you to use some on your own, find out what a lot of them are and what they mean, and start practicing using those expressions called idioms. Sometimes I don't understand what my teachers are saying. Sometimes our teachers can say confusing things, like if Miss Bainhauer says, it's still up in the air if we have an assembly this week, that's using an expression, an idiom. The literal meaning of that is, we do not know if we have an assembly this week. If Mrs. Benson uses an idiom that said, let's read during lunch and kill two birds with one stone, the literal meaning of that is, if we read at lunch and eat, we can get two things done at once. If Miss Wilson says, you will pass that test with flying colors, the literal meaning of that is, you will do so great on that test and pass it easily. Okay, sometimes I don't understand what my friends are saying. So your friends can say some things like, winning that game was a piece of cake. Well, that game wasn't really a piece of cake, but it was easy to win that game. Another expression they might say is, I bet the players just want to hit the hay. Well, they don't really want to hit some hay. What that means is they are tired and want to go to sleep. And the last one says, I hope that team doesn't have a chip on their shoulder. Well, they're not really talking about a chip on their shoulder. They're talking about they hope that team doesn't hold a grudge. Well, how do I know what all of these mean? Today we're going to learn some idioms. You're going to practice using them. When it happens in a real situation, you can always ask a friend, ask a teacher, or you can even Google what some of these phrases mean. And also you can watch this video for more practice and see if you can guess what the idioms mean. So what are idioms? An idiom is a phrase whose meaning can't be understood from the literal meaning of the words. Let's talk about some examples, right? A piece of cake, you've probably heard people say that a lot. Something that is very easy to accomplish is a piece of cake. Winning the basketball game was a piece of cake. Those kids were all so much shorter than us. A blessing in disguise. Have you ever heard your mom say this to you? It's something good that isn't originally seen that way. Having to leave the party early turned out to be a blessing in disguise because we made it home before the tornado came. A dime a dozen, something that is very common and easy to get. Dandelions are a dime a dozen during the summer. Every time I go outside, there are 10 more in my yard. So if you are having problems figuring out what it means, you can also look at the second part and it gives you hints. Like every time I go outside, there are 10 more in my yard. That means we can tell that there's a lot of them. An arm and a leg. Have you heard your parents say this to you? It means something's very expensive. So gas costs an arm and a leg these days, so I try to ride my bike instead of driving when I can. You've probably heard your parents say, I can't buy that for you. It's going to cost an arm and a leg. Beating around the bush. That means to avoid speaking about an issue. I was beating around the bush because I was afraid to tell my mom that I lost the money she gave me. I talked about everything else I could think of before I finally told her. So sometimes you can look at the phrases after the phrase to see what the real meaning is. Drive someone up the wall. To irritate and annoy someone. Have you ever said this to somebody? My little sister drives me up the wall. She pokes me on purpose and won't leave me alone. That's an idiom that we use quite often. Finding your feet. This means to become more comfortable with what you are doing. It took me about 2 weeks to find my feet playing football, but now I'm one of the best players on my team. A chip on your shoulder. We used this in the original slide of the kids talking at Maple Mountain. It means being upset about something that happened a long time ago. Sally still has a chip on her shoulder from when I lied to her last year. She is never going to let me forget it. That means she's holding a grudge. Hold your horses. What about this one? Have you heard this one? It means be patient. Hold your horses, Dad said. We aren't going to go anywhere until I finish my work. Let the cat out of the bag. That means to share something that was supposed to be a secret. Miss Kelly didn't want anyone to know that she was pregnant until she was a few weeks along, but her 3-year-old daughter let the cat out of the bag. She doesn't know how to keep a secret. Okay, so those were just a few examples of some that you've heard at school and probably from your parents and your friends. So now we're going to go practice. So what you're going to do is everybody's going to get up and go find 5 different people that they can, and you're going to tell, they're going to tell you one idiom that they like to use. Then you're going to make a collection of your 5 idioms and present them to the class. So this will help you find new ones that people use a lot and help you, by presenting them, it'll help you remember them in your mind. All right, everybody, let's go.